And they rejected the idea. And when they rejected it, she said, well, at least let's only have one newsletter. There's no reason for us both to produce magazines. Let's have one magazine. And they still rejected that idea. So Planned Parenthood wasn't even good enough to join up with the eugenics movement.
Do you remember and I think I have this right, it's a documentary, a history of the abortion industry and the birth control industry that I seem to recall reading in the mid-1980s, late 80s, titled Our Bodies, Our Choice. Do you recall that?
I remember it, yes.
Yeah, and that was written by, if I have the title right, it was written by a researcher who was pro-abortion.
Right.
And yet she got into the specifics of the eugenics roots of Planned Parenthood. And I recall, I think that's the first time I saw some of the quotes that, I've grown to repeat over the years. But Margaret Sanger describing the waste of money when she says that the blind, the deaf, the dumb, the mute, and the lame are the dead weight of human waste. Now, this is the founder and longtime president of Planned Parenthood calling handicapped people, and she lists them, the blind, the deaf, and so on, the dead weight of human waste. You can see that at Google Books. You can see the original book in the scans of the pages. And she talks not about abortion, but about infanticide when she says, she writes, the most merciful thing that a large family can do to an infant member is to kill it. And she is honored by Planned Parenthood to this day when they give their highest award, the Margaret Sanger Award, annually.
Right. Last year going to Hillary Clinton, by the way, who stood up there and said how much she admired Margaret Sanger. One of the things, I've been on some of these shows where Planned Parenthood people have called in, and they'll say, well, we'll concede that Margaret Sanger was not someone that should be emulated or someone that should be admired or so forth. And I'll say, well, then why don't you distance yourself from them?
Right.
Why are your biggest center in the country in New York, or one of them, where your headquarters is named after Margaret Sanger? And why is her grandson the guy that's running the thing? And why is your highest award that you give out every year named after Margaret Sanger? Why not just come out here and say, look, this woman was a total disgrace to the human race. We disavow everything she ever stood for, and we're going to go forward from here. But they won't do that because they don't disavow everything she stood for.
Mark,
what Margaret Sanger believed is what they believed.
The last time I looked on Planned Parenthood's website for where they list quotes from Margaret Sanger, and they say they're used out of context, and they provide their interpretation, the two I just mentioned, I've never seen them on that list. They're just so blatantly horrific to describe blind people and deaf people as the dead weight of human waste. I checked out both of her books from the Denver Public Library before I ever used those quotes on the air because it was hard to comprehend that a human being could have written those words, and she did, and they're there.
One of the things we've discovered when we were doing our research is an actual interview with her that's on film. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
No.
It's on our website at prolifeamerica.com.
Mm-hmm.
On the front page, you'll go down to a section called Archives. There's a big box there called Archives. That's archival information. We've got all of Margaret Sanger's books and pamphlets and some letters that she wrote. We also found an interview that she did with Mike Wallace in 1957.
Wow.
And there's really not much outrageous things she said on this interview.
Mm-hmm.
But her demeanor is one of a bitter, nasty, just a terrible person. You can't watch that and not come out with that view.
Wow.
And although I'm not Catholic, and I know you're not, I can tell you that her anti-Catholic attitude is just palpable in this interview. She hated the Catholic Church. I don't mean disliked it. She hated it.
Right.
And I suspect that that's not just simply that she hated the Catholic Church. I think she just saw the Catholic Church as, in her mind, the embodiment of all Christianity, and she hated Christianity in general.
Yeah, that's absolutely true from everything I've read about her and from reading her books. Mark Crutcher, we're almost out of time. For people to get the DVD, the best way is to go to Maafa21.com?
Yeah, they can go to Maafa21.com. That's MAAFA21.com. Or if they can't remember that, blackgenocide.com. We'll take them to that same website.
Black Genocide. And they could go to our website, kgov.com, for today's show, our interview with Mark Crutcher of Life Dynamics. And, of course, we'll link to Maafa21's website.